Hello, my name is Chase, and I have commitment issues. Well, not really like the ones that you might be thinking of. Like, I love my wife, she's great. We get along great. My kids are fine, tolerable, manageable, predictable. The job's great. No. I have major commitment issues when it comes to plans. Like, anyone love canceling plans? Is it just me? I really hope it's not just me. That would be terrible. Listen, I love plans. I love people. I want to be with people all the time. Like, once I get home, I take off my shoes, I sit on the couch and get nice and comfy. And then I realize that like in like an hour, I'm going to go to Hushawat's house, and like my mind immediately just jumps to like, bro, how can we just blow this pony and stay on this couch? And I hate this about myself. I do. And just like maybe as like a safety like blanket statement, it's like the dozens of you who are in these spaces that's like listening to me right now, and I've actually done this to you. I'm sorry. I'm terrible. But maybe I'll try this angle. Are there any Star Wars fans out there? All right. What about Marvel fans? Yeah? Okay, I'm really dating myself on this one. Are any of you Lord of the Rings fans? Where are my millennials? Where are you? Come to me, my millennial friends. We will be besties. These movies are amazing to me. Like these seemingly almost impossible stories where the main characters are just gung-ho, committing to choosing the right things to do. Like in Rogue One, where like the rebels sacrifice everything, even their own lives, to deliver the Death Star plans. Or Captain America, freaking Captain America, his stupid moral compass, always thinking about others. I mean, I am Team Cap, so of course I would mention him. And if you haven't seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy, boy, these movies are incredible. Frodo, this halfling, has this impossible task to deliver the ring to rule them all and destroy it in the fires of Mount Doom, all the while being consumed by the pressure and temptations to wear the ring to evade and outsmart his enemies. Like, Frodo has no problem committing to the bit. And like, we're wrapping up this series, Unstoppable Good, and we've cast this vision for this ministry for mountain students to make decisions to be a part of the unstoppable force that is God's church in this world. And we talked about how to trust God and the commitment that we make to trust God. We talked about sacrificing. We talked about priorities. Last week, Sean spoke about surrender, how the true way up is down. And tonight we're talking about commitments. And I don't want to take you too much of your time today, but when it comes to the vision that God has for us here at Mountain, are you in it for good? And I think I should walk this way. I'll see you in a second. So let's go sit over there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's chair by the pillow. Can I hug it? Okay. So I was pastoring some guys a few years back, and they were new Christians. They were trying to do right by God, or what they thought was right. Eventually, one of the guys bravely admitted something over lunch that I think each of us will feel has a ring of truth to it. He said, Chase, doing good over time is hard. Like, what do you all think? Is doing good all the time difficult? You might be asking, like, why do I have to be good all the time? I just want to punch them in the face. Like, why do I have to be nice to them? Since I have small kids who are into watching Disney movies right now, which is super fun. Have any of you seen Incredibles 2? Dude, that movie is great, all right? But I think about the dad, Mr. Incredible, who's stuck at the house, committing himself to doing good at home while his wife, Elastigirl, is out fighting the bad guys. Like, how long was he doing good before he just grows weary and exhausted and worried? Like, or maybe if any of you went to camp this year and you made a decision, or, we just got back from fall retreat and you decided to recommit your life to the Lord, like, how long can you keep doing good before you start doing bad? So I have some encouragement for us today. There's this passage that I want to read. It won't take me long. It's found in the book of Galatians chapter 6. And Paul is writing to a very conflicted church, very trying to figure out like how to do the right things together. And he is talking about doing good. So check this out, starting in verse 6, verse 7. Don't be misled. No one makes a fool of God. What a person plants, he will harvest. The person who plants selfishness, ignoring the needs of others, ignoring God, harvests a crop of weeds. All he'll have to show for his life is weeds. But the one who plants in response to God, letting God's Spirit do the growth work in them, they harvest a crop of real life, eternal life. So none of you, and especially not me, we're not fooling God by our actions. None of us are going to convince God of what God already knows about who we are. And this is important to understand because leaders, hear me out if you get this, okay? Give me like something, okay? Give me something if you relate to this. Time spent pretending to follow Jesus, it's like turning the steering wheel of your car, but it isn't hooked up to your axle. So you're just like, you're driving your car and you think that you're turning, but like you're just going in the same direction that you've always gone. Like, don't get me wrong here. Like, if you're here and you don't believe in the ways of Jesus, if you don't want to follow God, like that's one thing, and that's fine. Like you can choose to do that. I do hope that your experiences lead towards God and that you do have a group of people who are going to love you no matter what. But if you are someone who says they're a Christian and you aren't committed to the mission, you should reflect on what that means and ask yourself where your relationship with God currently stands. This kind of sounds harsh, but what we talked about in this series is like the unbelievers, the people who were on the mission to seek to bring to Jesus. If they are going to know about who God is through God's people, these living stones, remember from week 3, it's time for God's people to step up and commit to what God's asking of us. And we won't succeed in this mission if the next generation of Christ followers and leaders are shaky in their commitments. So here's Paul's encouragement, right? He says this, very next verse, verse 9. So let's not allow ourselves to get fatigued doing good. At the right time, we will harvest a good crop if we don't give up, don't quit. Right now, therefore, every time we get the chance, let us work for the benefit of all, starting with the community of people closest to us, that is the community of faith. You know, they understood this then, and it's just as important to us today. Choosing good all the time will be frustrating. It will be tiring, and it might even be kind of boring. Our natural tendency is to lie, cheat, fake it, return anger with anger. You know, you punch me, I'm going to hit you back. You know, fear mongering, choosing to live however you feel like it. Those things are weeds. But when we submit ourselves to the Spirit of God, when we harvest life, we will harvest life. Or things that give you life, like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. That is the harvest of God's people. But I need to tell you something really important. Come with me this way. This way? That way? Okay. This way. Okay. Come with me. All right. So I left you on a little bit of a cliffhanger. All right. But I need to tell you something. It's really hard to commit to something that you feel hasn't really made that much of an impact with your life. And for many of you, I know it feels like God really hasn't done much for you. I know in my life, every one of your leaders' lives, there's been these stretches where we just wonder where God is and what God is doing, especially early, especially maybe even before we started really believing in God. But let me tell you this, let me challenge you with this. I have a question for you. What is it that's holding you back from allowing God to enter into your life? like for real this time? Like, is it friends? Is it your boyfriend, girlfriend? Do you feel like you aren't worth it to God? No, is it like a broken home thing? A parent who is gone, whether by choice or by tragedy. It's hard to trust nowadays, just like Luke said a few weeks ago. But what if the thing that's holding you back from God can be used as a way to let God back in? One of my favorite stories of Jesus is found in Luke chapter 5. And there's this leprous man, he's very leprous. What that means is he just has these spots, these skin conditions all over his body. And in that time, anyone who had those terrible sores all over their body, they would have been cast out of town until they were healed. But most of them never healed because, medicine 2,000 years ago, kind of spotty, pun intended. So most of them spent their days isolated from everyone. But this leprous man learns about the miracles of Jesus, and he came to him desperate one day and he said, "Teacher, if you are willing, I know you can make me clean." And all Jesus says in return is, "I am willing." So when I ask you, what is holding you back from truly committing to Jesus? I'm also asking, are you willing to allow God to heal you, to redeem you, restore you? Are you willing to open up yourself enough for God to see who you really are? Remember, no one fools God. God knows. But He's waiting for you to let Him in. Let what's holding you back become a basis for what brings you back. It'd be very bold of you today to pray to God, "God, if you are willing, you can make me clean." That's a bold prayer. One I desire for each of you to say. I want you all to be part of this unstoppable force of good that God's church is supposed to be. But for those of you who are struggling, I might suggest one way you can commit to the mission. Just keep showing up. But maybe start showing up a little different. Like if you're showing up for answers, you're looking for good, you're looking for change, then God will meet you. If you're showing up for friends, for boys, for girls, if you're showing up for 9 Square or Smash, like that's cool. We need those things. But also start showing up for the good. And watch as your lives are transformed by God's goodness. Watch as you discover the purpose that each of you has for your life. And you'll find yourself more and more committed to the mission. Because friends, there's one last thing I want to share with you. It's found at the end of this passage in verse 14 and 16, Galatians 6. Paul says, "For my part, I'm not going to boast about anything other than the cross of our Master, Jesus Christ, because of that cross, I have been crucified in relation to the world. I've been set free from the stifling atmosphere of pleasing others and fitting into the little patterns that they dictate." What he's saying is like, what Paul can be proud of, what he can boast in, is the fact that he no longer is being held to the standards that the world holds themselves to. You don't have to, you can be free from the pressure of the social anxieties and the needing to fit in. You can be free from the ways in which people are pressuring you to be. You can be free from the rules written, unwritten about your life. You can just simply rest in knowing that Jesus is enough. He goes on and says this, "Can't you see the central issue in all this is not what you and I do, right? It's what God is doing. And He is creating something totally new. Totally new. A free life. All who walk by this standard are the true people of God, the true Israel, the true people of God, His chosen people, and peace and mercy on them." God is creating something totally new. Through our commitment, God is going to change lives forever. So why not take this challenge with us? Trust in God's direction for your life. Choose to sacrifice for others. Reconsider your priorities. Surrender to God's way and commit to the mission. Your investments of time, talent, treasure will amount to changed, healed, restored lives all over the world because God's Spirit is at work. Your student's pastor is going to wrap up our time tonight, and I challenge you to commit. Let what's holding you back become the basis for what brings you back to this mission. And pray to God. Ask for clarity. Talk with your group about your commitments to this unstoppable good that is already taking shape around us. And know this, all right? And this is where I'll close. Students are leading the way for our whole church. These are the first commitments being made for the unstoppable good mission. So let's show everyone just how powerful students can be to change the world.